Welcome back to the Sunny Talk Spurs YouTube channel. And now the dust has settled on the James Maddison injury. We're, as Spurs fans, in a bit of a crisis again. We thought it was all plain sailing when Morgan Gibbs-White looked like he was joining the club. But now with Maddison's injury, Kulusevski's injury, we look like we're looking for a new number 10. And joining me today to sort of sift through all this data and all these players to see who is the perfect 10 for Tottenham is none other than Alice. How are you doing today, Alice?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me on the channel again. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Tottenham do because Morgan Gibbs-White is a bit of a blow.
I know. I mean, funny enough, actually, we've actually. I'll tell the viewers at home if they haven't already seen it. Me and Alice have actually now met in person. We don't just talk on the internet now. We've met in person. We were on Zach's recent video. Go and watch that if you haven't seen it already. I think Alice got a bit of the short stick of it, trying to defend Manchester United all day.
Get to 12, get to 12. I was like, we've got one game a week. Like, I think we can get top 10 at least. Give me a midfielder though. We need a midfielder.
Oh, that's what made me laugh because there was a few comments that said everyone's having a go at the Man United fan, but what's the Tottenham fan doing up there? And I was just there being like, I don't know. But yeah, you mentioned Manchester United needing a midfielder is really interesting. But obviously, we're talking about Tottenham's midfield. You've come to this video today with a list of players that you think might be good. I've got a list of a few players, but before we get into some of these players, I just want to get your opinion so far because I see it in my comment section. There's some, obviously, because we missed out on Morgan Gibbs-White, there was a few Spurs fans at the time who were like, do we actually need Morgan Gibbs-White? And this is when James Maddison was fit and the fact that Kulusevski will eventually come back from his injury. I just want to ask you, first of all, then, do you think Tottenham do have enough in, one, the attack and one, in creative areas to really, overcome this? And do they actually need to go and get a 10 when they could play maybe the likes of Odegaard or Mohamed Kudus in that 10 role, perhaps?
Do you know what? If Maddison and Kulusevski were guaranteed to stay fit, you wouldn't necessarily need a 10. Like when you were first linked to Morgan Gibbs-White, I was like, great signing, but you've got Maddison, you've got Kulusevski, and then I was like, oh, well, they're like injured and it's not good injuries. I don't know when Kulusevski's due back. Do you have any idea about that?
Um, it's a long while. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I don't think it'll be until the new year. I think
Oh, wow.
it's that bad because there was I read something the other day where I saw a video from Ben Bowman, which was like he was playing through quite a nasty injury, and when they did the surgery, they were like, "Oh God, this is not good," because we always had that thing of like during the season being like, oh, Kulusevski never gets injured. And then there was a moment where he was looking really, really tired. And we were like, he's playing through something. I mean, most of the players ended up
Yeah, he
playing through
dropped
not.
off. Like he was insane the first 3 months of the season, and then he did drop off, so he probably was carrying it then.
That's what really worries me. And especially when you see what Frank wants in a 10. And I think Kulusevski is the perfect version of that because he's willing to work back. He's willing to, fight. And he's the perfect Mikhail Damsgaard replacement. I think he's personally a bit better than Mikhail Damsgaard. But I see him more likely in a 10 than I would in like on the wing for a Thomas Frank team. I feel like Frank will want someone with a bit more pace. But my one worry with those players is, I mean, more Odegaard and Tell is they're a bit raw, is my one worry. I think Kudus shows a bit more like creativity and goal scoring threat. But then the argument for him is he's coming from a West Ham team where he didn't do much and didn't create many goals or score. I think he only scored 5 in the Premier League. So there is those question marks over those players. So would you still argue that Tottenham need a bit more backup then?
Yeah, definitely. I think with Maddison and Kulusevski's injury issues, you have to get one. I think Kudus could play as a 10, but you've brought him in to be on your right-hand side. He's looked good on your right-hand side in pre-season. So it's like bringing in a player and then not playing him in his position. And then I just think with Odegaard, again, I thought the Arsenal game, what was good was having Odegaard and Kudus on the wings. They look better there because they can dribble the ball, whereas Brennan Johnson doesn't really bring that ball carrying ability. So I thought that was good. And Tell for me, he's been put all over the place, but he's he's a bit of a Cody Gakpo type player. He's better on the left. Like he likes to come inside, but he's not striker. I don't think he's a 10. And I'm like, yeah, unless you're gonna try something like Sarr at 10, and again that would be a bit like he's better as an 8. Bergvall's better as an 8. Unless you want to play like a flat midfield three, but I don't think you've got enough creativity for that. I think you have to go and get a 10 or at least a versatile player that could play 10 but maybe when Kulusevski comes back, could also play on the left. I don't think you would get him. I think he's not for sale, but like a Morgan Rodgers can play out wide and 10. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I even you say there, Sarr playing in the 10. He's played there a few games in pre-season, scored 3 goals. I mean, one was a wonder strike, and one was he was on the end of it, sort of thing. So you expect that maybe from a Thomas Frank 10 to arrive late in the box and make those sort of things happen. But moving on, then the 3 names I want to talk about first of all are more unrealistic names, I would say. The way that the summer's gone. The first one, I haven't addressed this yet on the channel because I've refused to because the sources are so limited and it's Rodrygo from Real Madrid, but there still seems to be links there. So I put him in and but it's just not going to happen. I think it's silly. The fact that it's even a rumor is diabolical. So I've got him there. Xavi Simons is a name that keeps being linked, but again, looks like he's set to move to Chelsea. And then Eberechi Eze is one where, again, linked with Tottenham early on in the window. Then the Morgan Gibbs White rumours were, heating up, and there was rumours that we were out of that, and Arsenal were going in for him. But then that's cooled off, and Palace's European futures up in the air. So there's all question marks over these 3 players' future in general. What do you make of those names? I've even seen, funny enough, some Spurs fans being like, well, why don't we just now go back in for Morgan Gibbs White and offer them the money that Marinakis wants? But I think that's unrealistic. But yeah, what do you make of all that?
I think with Tottenham, again, you mentioned some names, but it's just how realistic is it? You've got, of course, Rodrygo. That's like when Man United got linked to Isak the other week. I was like, guys, we're not in for Isak. But yet and then there's journalists coming out like breaking, Manchester United aren't interested in Isak. And I'm like, is that really journalism? I think like the Rodrygo one would shock me. I think it's a bit of paper talk. Xavi Simons would be great, but he's going to Chelsea. You've got Eze, that would be great. He seems to be obsessed with Arsenal. The only question is, will Arsenal now look at more of an out-and-out left winger like a Rafael Leao and not go for Eze? Is that something they could do? Because Arsenal need a left winger. I think the perfect guy for Tottenham is Eze, but I just don't think you're going to be able to get him. I think, Morgan Gibbs White, Eze, Xavi Simons, like they are the names that they're the ones that Tottenham need. And then you've got a Morgan Rodgers, but that's not the most realistic. It's hard to find like who's available in the market right now because I think Gibbs White is a big, big loss now.
Yeah, I think the thing is what most Tottenham fans want is proven players, and these are 3 massively proven players. Maybe not Simmons because I feel like he still has got those next steps to take, but he's such a really good prospect, and us England fans have seen that in the Euro semi-final last year for the Netherlands. And Eze, yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. He's very similar to a Morgan Gibbs White and can drift, and if we want to play him on the left, we can, but it's just again, it's wages, it's paying up for these players, it's proven players. I mean, I haven't added this to my proper list, but I had a debate with a Tottenham fan who I work with at Talksport, and he was like, "We should just go and get Jack Grealish." And I think I heard Gabby Bonhor as well say, "Go and get Jack Grealish," and I was like, but that doesn't make sense whatsoever to me because 1, wages, 2, what I was just saying about Kulusevski. Jack Grealish is not going to actually, track back and do the hard work that he wants now. He's a bit older. I know we've just signed João Palhinha, who's, north of 30, but I feel like in that position we need someone a bit younger. And also, I'll be honest, Jack Grealish, well, Villa, I thought he was good, but he hasn't really got the numbers that you'd expect for a player in that mould that we need to actually put up. When he was playing at Villa, he was playing on the left. Same with City during that treble-winning season, he was more performative on the left. I can't see him now really performing well in the 10, but I mean, what do you think of Grealish links?
Yeah, I like Grealish is a good player, but it's like how Arsenal got Sterling last year from Chelsea because we're like, okay, Sterling's a good player, but he had a poor season at Chelsea. It's that risk with Grealish, it's big wages, and it's like you could get Grealish, and it could be something brilliant. You could do something brilliant there. You could revive him, or it could be a bit like Sterling when he went to Arsenal, and it was just they started playing Ranieri over him. I think it's too much of a risk to take. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. But luckily, I've brought you a list of 5 players who I think could potentially be good. Some a bit more unrealistic than others. And what we'll do then, Alice, is we'll take it in turns. I'll, you know, put a name forward and debate them and then get your opinion on it, and then you give me a name and we'll just go backwards and forwards like that. So I'll go first. And the first name that I bring to the table is someone who I've already done a video on. Not really many links to him, but there is the possibility that his future is up in the air at Manchester City. That's James McAtee. There was rumours that Nottingham Forest were keen for him to be the Morgan Gibbs White replacement if Morgan Gibbs White had come to us. I think, stellar player. I actually got a bit of stick for calling him a wonder kid because he's 22 years old, but I still think, to me, a wonder kid's under 23. But, putting up some good numbers in the under 21s for City and also for England under 21s, starting the Euros this summer. Has had a bit of first team football, but I think City ideally want similar to what they sold Cole Palmer to Chelsea for when it comes to price, around that 40 to 50 million mark. I think it makes a lot of sense, but the only backfire that I've had is he proven enough? Is he going to start? Can he go straight into the team? So what do you make of a James McAtee?
I like James McAtee. I think he's a good player, but he's not like quite Cole Palmer level. He's a little bit older as well than Cole Palmer when Chelsea signed him. I think as a player, like what I've noticed is I think he should have played for City more last season because when City's midfield fell off, Pep was still reluctant to give him opportunities, but when he did give McAtee opportunities, I thought he was pretty good. I think he covered ground well. I thought his press and energy was good, but I think he carries the ball quite well, which is something that Thomas Frank would like. I think more ball carriers at Tottenham. I think that he was good on the ball, good in tight spaces, good carrier. Like, I think there's a good player there. I think he's got the right technical and physical attributes to succeed, do well in the Premier League, and he looks pretty comfortable centrally, but he can go out wide. I think it's a good player. It's just I feel like we didn't see enough of him at Manchester City last year to know if he's the guy. But I also am like, this could be a good option. And it's a weird thing, but a lot of the City youngsters leave City and they're just really good. Like obviously Cole Palmer's the main example, but you look at like a Lavia, if he could stay fit, there's a really good player there. Like City have got so many academy players that will leave them, go to a couple of clubs, and then end up at a big club. They do produce some great talents.
Yeah, I feel like it would be actually probably one that Chelsea end up signing because they seem to be mopping up all the the academy players from City. But yeah, I think McAtee to me, it's one of those ones where I'd want him and someone else. If say Maddison wasn't at the club or Kulusevski as well, only one of them was injured. I feel like it's him and another player because yeah, the thing is with Spurs is we've got so many good youngsters. I think now we need a bit of a blend of maturity and some leaders. It's to sound stereotypical, but that's who I put forward as my first player. What we'll do at the end, Alice, is we'll then decide who your option is for Spurs and who my option is, and then the viewers at home can then vote in the comments to think who is the perfect creator and number 10 for Spurs. So who is your first player?
So my first one is a bit of a rogue one. He's more like he's played more on the left recently than a number 10, but I think he can play number 10. He's played across the whole front four, and that is Iliman Ndiaye of Everton, that I think is going to have a big season. Got 9 goals last season for Everton, was their best player, scored against Man United in pre-season the other day as well, looked good in that game. And while he's probably maybe more of a winger, I think, he can play 10. We've seen him play 10, and he's very good at getting between the channels or getting in the half space and linking up with the players around him. And I think if there's good players around him, he'd be even better. I think he's gonna stay at Everton this year, but I think he's gonna have a very good season at Everton this year because Everton are looking at some good level talent. But I think as a guy in terms of combination play, movement, in terms of finishing, I think he's good. I think he's got good work rate as well. He's proven to be clinical. I think his creative side could improve, and I think maybe Thomas Frank might look for a more natural creator in the 10 role. But the reason I put him forward is a bit like Kudus. He's probably better out wide than as a 10. But I'm thinking when Maddison and Kulusevski do come back, that's someone that can go on your left, and you could have Ndiaye, Kulusevski, Kudus with Solanke up top, and that is a really good front four. But he could probably do a job in the 10 role, but maybe isn't an out-and-out 10 compared to other players. But I think, Premier League proven, physically good, technically good. I really liked what I saw of him last season.
Yeah, I mean, you've said it there. I think during pre-season he's looked really good. A lot of people touting him as the next £70 million player. I was just googling there actually because I was pretty sure he was the same player who was at Sheffield United, and I remember when Sheffield United were last in the Premier League, he tormented Spurs' back line that day. And also, funny enough, his youth career, he was in the Boreham Wood Youth Academy, which is I didn't think I was going to read that today. But yeah, I like that as an option. I just think it's one of those ones where I want to see this Everton, going on a bit of a tangent here. I want to see this Everton team this year, because a lot of people are like acting like they're going to maybe go up the table, but some people are like, we'll wait and see. The proof is in the pudding. But yeah, I think that's the problem with these 10s. I mean, some of the ones that I've put forward are not just 10s, they're wingers who could maybe play like a mould role for Spurs. But yeah, I like the idea of that. I think the problem is fee. I feel like a lot of what Spurs are doing this summer is going and getting like more Premier League players. So maybe that is one that is quite realistic, but I can imagine Everton will want to keep hold of him this year. My next player is, and you've mentioned him already as an unrealistic target, but it is Morgan Rodgers. And my argument for Morgan Rodgers would be, Villa and PSR or FFP, whatever you want to call it, they're still up in the air with that. They've not actually done much business this summer. There was the rumours that they'd sell Manchester United, your club, Ollie Watkins. So they would be open to selling a higher profile asset to sort their issues out. And then I guess what it is, Villa are a big club, don't get me wrong, but, they didn't get in the Champions League in the end. And maybe it's a statement to go out there. Tottenham, you were willing to put some money down for Morgan Gibbs-White. Why don't you go and do it for Morgan Rodgers? Because Morgan Rodgers, I think he's a stellar player. What he reminds me of is he's not so much like a deep lying playmaker. He's a bit like a second striker, like a bit like how Dele Alli was at Tottenham. He's willing to link up with the striker, and I could imagine him forming a good partnership with Dominic Solanke and getting the best out of him. But I assume, Alice, I don't have to tell you otherwise, that Morgan Gibbs-White is a class player.
Just realised there's still mute there. Yeah, I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White, Morgan Rodgers, both top players. I think Morgan Rodgers is like the dream. Like when you think of like, okay, he's maybe not an out and out 10. He's maybe more of a guy that's a second striker, like would play like quite closely behind Solanke, but as a ball carrier, as a physical player, he can play out wide. He's one of those players, and I remember tweeting about this last year. I was like, I like players like Cunha, Morgan Rodgers, João Pedro, where they're not number 9s, but they're like can play behind the 9, but also play out wide because they've got good ball carrying ability, but they've also got good creative vision, but they're also a good finisher, but they're also physically strong. It's one of my favourite profile of players, and Morgan Rodgers is obviously one of my dream targets for Manchester United. I think, will Villa sell? I think they'd rather sell an Emi Martinez or Ollie Watkins because of age than a Morgan Rodgers. I think it would be expensive. Like, but don't get me wrong, he'd be an unbelievable sign for Tottenham. I don't think you could do much better than Morgan Rodgers. Young, prem proven, good ball carrier, good creator, good finisher, output in the Premier League. I mean, he is what you want, but I think availability will be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well put him in the in the category with Eze, Simmons, and Rodrygo. He's one that just looks a bit, out of our reach. But who is your next player?
So my next pick is Harvey Elliott.
Oh, he's on my list as well. That's a good choice.
I was saying this, must have been like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when Morgan Gibbs fell through. I was saying, I think I was actually talking about it in regards to, actually, no, I was talking about it maybe before that, actually. I think I was talking about it in regards to Newcastle needing a 10. But they said with Harvey Elliott, we know he's a fantastic player. He's probably always England's best player, like under 21s. He's crazy. But that Liverpool team is a super team. Slot didn't really give him many minutes. Of course, he had a bad injury at the start of the season, and that didn't help. And he reminds me a bit of, and I'm not saying he's going to be Cole Palmer, but Cole Palmer was this great talent, and he would get minutes here and there for Man City, but he never got consistent minutes for Man City, and he pushed his move to Chelsea, which was 40 million, and people thought it was a lot at the time, but it's been the best thing that Chelsea have ever done, is getting Cole Palmer. So I'm not saying that Harvey Elliott is going to have the impact that Cole Palmer's going to have, but I think Harvey Elliott's in that Cole Palmer bracket where he's at one of the top 2 clubs in the country that is building this super team that isn't maybe going to give him the minutes he needs to develop, and he needs to kick on in his career, and he's only about a year and a half older than Palmer was when Palmer pushed for that move to Chelsea. I think, potentially, he goes at Tottenham, he becomes one of the main men, he could be class. But the thing about Harvey Elliott stands out to me, and I think this is something Liverpool might miss, but he's really good at breaking down low blocks. And that's why I always suggested him to Newcastle, because Newcastle are building a transition team with Elanga and stuff, but they might struggle against low blocks. Whenever Liverpool come up against a low block, and I go back to the Brentford game last season, which was in that title running, because this is when Arsenal still believe they had the chance, and Harvey Elliott came off the bench, and he just changed that game with his passing vision. I think he got the assist for both Nunez goals, or like maybe a pre-assist, but he's so good in the tight pockets of pockets of space, finding runs, quick combination movement. He's been thrown at right wing at times for Liverpool, or been getting limited minutes. Mavert's coming in, he's not going to get the minutes. And I think one, it's the homegrown quota, which is always like a good box to have just ticked off to find homegrown players. But I think technical ability, I think a bit of experience in the Premier League. I think we know from England like the level that is there. And I think creativeness, I think he could hit a new level when he with consistent minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. My one question back to you would be obviously he hasn't had those minutes at Liverpool. Do you think he can actually make that step up then to play for a more like play consistently for another team? Because I guess the level he sees himself at is probably the Tottenham, Newcastle, Villa level. Maybe like say he didn't play for Liverpool, even Manchester United. But the only other teams I see him linked to are a bit like West Ham and the lower side of the Premier League. But he's one of those players. It's hard to now pick where he goes because Liverpool will demand a good fee. So yeah, so I guess you are arguing that you think he can be a main man at another club.
Yeah, I think he was. I think if Klopp had stayed, he would have had a lot more opportunities last season because in Klopp's final season, I think again he had some injury issues, but he got 9 assists in the Premier League in what I think 1,300 minutes. I think he averaged the goal contribution every 100 minutes under Jurgen Klopp. In Jurgen Klopp's last season, he got 14 assists and 4 goals in the Klopp's last season. So there's a very good creator there. I know you're playing in a super team at Liverpool, but to get 14 assists at age 20, I think the impact he had. I thought in Klopp's last season he was really good, but he's just not been able to push on under Arne Slot, and I think he needs to go elsewhere to do that.
Yeah, it would be perfect. And, we've still got, just under a month until the end of the transfer window. And I can't see him staying, especially if Liverpool go out and sign Isak. They've just got too much up top to really entertain him. And, same in the midfield with signed Verts, still got Sabos. I nearly put Sabozlai on my list, but then I thought there's no way that they're going to get rid of it. But then I thought Sabozlai might be, I'm trying to think in the mind of a player and be like, do I want to play second fiddle? I've not watched too much of
He's going
Liverpool.
to
I don't know.
play 8, I think, a lot.
Yeah, that's what that I wasn't sure if he had been playing alongside Verts. I mean, it makes me sick that Liverpool building this team, but is what it is. What I'll do then is because I had Harvey Elliott on my list, I'll say my last 2 players, and then you can go for all your players. The next player I've got is a player who's supposedly handed in a transfer request. He's not a 10; he's more of a winger. But there are some Spurs fans who do want a winger. Been linked with Arsenal. It's Ademola Lookman. I mean, just been absolutely incredible. Sort of struggled in the Premier League. I mean, he was okay at Everton. He was at Charlton in English football as well. There was another. Was he at Leicester? Or I think he was at Leicester, and he fell out with. He seems to fall out with people. That's maybe my. I think he fell out with Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, but has gone to Serie A and absolutely been incredible for Atalanta. Hat trick in the Europa League final the year before Spurs won it, and I just feel like it's one of those ones where I don't know why Spurs aren't just having a look and going in for a player like this because it just makes total sense. He's matured in a good way on the pitch. As I say, my one worry is his attitude, but I've seen people talk about Ryan Cherky's attitude this summer and Xavi Simons' attitude. Like it seems like whenever there's a question mark over a player, just blame their attitude.
Like even with Rashford, they go about attitude. I'm like Rashford's attitude is like nowhere near as bad as it gets made out to be.
Yeah.
Cunha, we got that. I think Lookman's a good player. I haven't watched a whole lot of Atlanta this last year. Obviously, I watched the Europa League running, but he's very direct, and he's, as you said, he's more of a winger. He could play centre forward. He could give some good rotation to Solanke as well. He's just a lethal, direct guy that can finish. His output at Atalanta has been good. I'm sure I don't know what his exact statistics are, but I know that they are good numbers. He's probably more of a winger, but he's a winger that likes to come more central. He's someone that's gonna get the ball, has a lot of energy, is going to be really good in transitions, really lethal at carrying the ball forward, and is just going to, whether he can play 10 is a big question. I think he could do a job there, but it's just someone that is at least going to level up your attack. So if you do play Sarr as a 10 next year, if you've got a player of Lookman's quality and Kudus's quality, then, you're not asking for as much as Sarr. From Sarr, I think, if you know what I mean as well. And I think Sarr is a great player. I think he could do a role in the 10, but I think he is a specialist 8. But I think if you had Sarr and you had, I don't know, Palhinha and Berg for midfield three, they're quite good players. But if you've got like a proper left winger and Kudus and Solanke, if he can stay fit, then it takes that need off it, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even there's some Spurs fans out there who want us to get another striker, which I'm very reluctant to, because I still think Dominic Solanke is going to be a class player, especially under Thomas Frank. I feel like he's going to get the best out of him. Some people saying, why don't we just go get Johan Visser? But I feel like he'd want to be
Get Hoyland.
like he'd want. No, you're all right. I will have to reject that one. But and also like Richardson's future, we don't know if he's leaving. I mean, during preseason, he's not looked too sharp. You can still tell he's got a bit of ring rust around him from injury. But my last player, and this is a very left field shout. But after seeing us sign Polina, I feel like we're more open to maybe, I don't want to call them stop gaps, but maybe the older, more refined player. But this player did have a good season or half season on loan at Aston Villa. I actually thought he was better than Rashford. A lot of people were saying that Rashford had a good loan at Villa, but I actually think this guy had a better loan spell, and it is Marco Asensio. Future still looks up in the air at PSG. Don't know what is going to happen to him. I've actually I had a quick Google before we started this video, and there's just no links to him. I mean, there is a potential link of him going back to Aston Villa, but again, I don't know if they could afford that. Especially, I assume he's on quite high wages at PSG. 29 will be 30 come January next year. Do you think that's a aspirational pick from me, or do you feel like, should I actually be thinking of all the names I've mentioned? Because maybe if we say we did an Asensio and a James McAtee, is that better than maybe just going for Eze?
I don't know if it's better than going for Eze because I would say quality over quantity, but I think it's a very good alternative because you can't get Eze. I think if you get Asensio and McAtee, it's like, well, actually, can't get Eze, but this is a very smart way of getting around it. And I think with Asensio, he was good at Villa. There was inconsistencies, and I think Tottenham's quite inconsistent. And the questions over what does consistency be like. But I think as again versatile, so when Kulusevski's that he can play out wide. Experience, I think wages is the reason why he's not getting a move. But I think in terms of his combination play, dribbling, pace, vision, being able to impact the game, score goals, he's a clever player. Like there's a good player in Asensio, and I think he likes the idea of maybe being the main man as well. I feel like.
Yeah, there's just a few of these players who have just got their future up in the air, and it's just I feel like because we're impatient football fans, we think why are these not getting sorted sooner rather than later? But it's all going to play out, and I think there's just a lot of panic rather in this Spurs fan base that we all thought we were cooking about a month ago, and then it's all come tumbling down. But right, you must have you got 2 or 3 players left on your list, I believe.
I have 2 players left on my list.
Okay.
Obviously, number one is a bit of a risk, and I don't think West Ham will want to do business with you again. But it is Paqueta, who again, obviously before the whole betting scandal, he was going to move to Manchester City, and there was a reason why Manchester City were in for him. I don't think he's been at his best since, but he's obviously had things going off the pitch, distractions that haven't helped. So I think being cleared of that, he could have a good season, Lucas Paqueta. I think he is a good player. I think he's technically good. Like his numbers weren't great the last few seasons in the Premier League, and I don't think he's lived up to the hype. But I do think there's a player there that is a good dribbler, that has good close control, that is good in tight areas, that could benefit from playing at someone like Tottenham. I think could work well under a manager like Thomas Frank that's known for getting the best out of players. Because I think with Paquetá, he's a good player, but I don't think West Ham have got the best out of him. Whereas I think Thomas Frank is known for doing that. And I think as well, he does work hard. He does win back the ball. He does press high. He is good physically. So that was one of my options. But again, he's not, I don't think he's been great. But then I do think and then the other one again was one we mentioned off camera is obviously Sancet of a Atletico Club Bilbao, who obviously scored versus Liverpool yesterday. Has very good output. Like I've not watched crazy amounts of him, but I was looking up sort of his numbers. 0.89 goals and assists per 90, which is really good output there. He's very good at making final third passes. I think in terms of output, that is the best player there. The question is, can you bring that output from La Liga to the Premier League? We seen Anthony go over to La Liga and look good. But he's good pressing, good work rate, very high percentile for aerial duels one as well, good at winning duels. And I think the biggest question for me is when players leave La Liga is can they deal with the physicality of the Premier League? And I think he's one of the more physical players in the Liga. So I think he would transition to the Premier League a lot better than other players. And I think in terms of, goal productivity and physicality and midfield control, he's the better option, whereas Paqueta could be more of a technical playmaker. And then obviously the other two names I suggested were Njai, who's more of a winger that can drift across, and then Harvey Elliott, who's more of a youthful risk, but with sort of a spark, a bit of flexibility, a bit of creativity there. There's sort of a mixture of profiles in there.
Yeah, that's why I brought you onto the channel, Alice, because you brought a mixture of all those different players. Again, Paquetá, yeah, I'd love it. Great age for this squad, and again, could play. Yeah, he could play in the double pivot. Yeah, I don't think West Ham. If we go back knocking to West Ham, I think one of the fans would
I
come
hate you.
after us, and David Sullivan would just be like, "No, they'll invent the Tottenham tax again." And then yeah, Sonset or Sancet, I'm not sure how you say his name. Again, one of those ones where do you know who I was going to put? So we agreed to do this video last week, but on my list I had that Enzo Millot, who is at Stuttgart and going to Al-Ahli. Apparently, Tottenham win for him, so Atletico Madrid, and I'm just like,
I've
he
heard
would have been
that he's
perfect.
good. Do you know who I'd think would have been really good? And it was one of the players that I was keeping an eye on last season, but then he got injured, was Malik Tillman. And he was at
Hmm,
PSV and he's gone to Bayer
yeah.
Leverkusen now. But I think if you'd have known earlier in the window, there would have been more options for you to go for. But it's getting later in the window where the options are slimmer now.
Yeah, I touted him. I touted him in a video in January, saying that we should sign him again. With there's a guy who was at Villarreal called, is it Biner, or I think he's gone to
Oh yeah,
Atletico
he's
Madrid
got
as
a
well.
move. Yeah.
Basically, what you just said, that they're spot on. The market is now shrunk, and even like when I was prepping for this video, I was just looking at generic like articles like best tens in the world, and they're either gone already somewhere, not going to go because it's Cole Palmer or Jude Bellingham, or just going to cost an absolute arm and a leg. But yeah,
I've got
surround. Go on,
I've
sorry.
got a rogue option for Tottenham, but I don't think he'll leave Man United, and I don't think we want to sell him. Is Mason Mount, because I do think Cunha's the left 10, and Mbumo's the right 10. Mason Mount is a good player, but he's always injured, which doesn't help with Kulusevski and Maddison. But I do think this is his make or break year at Manchester United, where if he doesn't cement himself in, and he's been really good in pre-season, scoring goals, been a bright spot. He was really good the last 3 or 4 games of the season, apart from the Europa League final, but he was really good in the semi-final, was really good in the last few Premier League games. There's a player there, and I think if Tottenham came in with like 40 million, which might seem a lot for a player that's not played loads the last 3 years, I don't think Man United would turn that down. I don't think they would at all.
Yeah, because I saw your video the other day where you were praising him a lot, and so how has he been lining up in that Manchester United side? Has he been playing alongside, or will he play alongside Cunha and Buemo then?
So right now it's pre-season, so it's like Cunha plays 45, Mason Mount plays 45. Basically,
Okay.
Mason Mount is being given the baby treatment in the sense of we just keep bringing him on every game for half an hour. Like, or we'll take him off after 60 minutes if he starts. We're not giving him full 90s. A little bit like Chelsea tried to do with Reece James to sustain a bit of fitness with him last season. We are just like, because every time he'd get fit, he'd come back, play again, get injured. So Amrin is really like not giving him like loads, but he's getting half an hour cameos, and he's been, for me, I think he's been really bright in pre-season. I think he ended the season quite well. Like he's stayed fit for the longest amount of time he's stayed fit for, because his first 2 years were just could not stay fit. But he started to stay fit a little bit at the back end of last season, maybe because we were managing his minutes better. But I don't think he's going to start over Cunha. I actually think he was brighter than Cunha the last 2 pre-season games, because we then played Cunha as centre forward, and then Mount came on sort of more on the left, but he's been playing as the left-sided 10. And I think, with his book value being about 30 million, 25 million now, I think Man United would probably, I think Amron really likes him. Amron really likes him, really thinks he's a good player, but there's concerns over fitness. But I do think a bid could tempt United.
Yeah, I feel like if Tottenham fans saw Mason Mount come in and with his injury record as well, I feel like it wouldn't. It gives me lead balloon territory. Territory.
It's
I
too
feel like
much of a risk. If you signed him for 40 million and someone could say he's going to go a whole season without getting injured, it's a good signing. But
mm.
he could play 5 games for you and you spent 40 million on 5 games, and it would just be ridiculous.
And then we're back, instead of having two tens injured, we got three. But yeah, that's definitely going to be the clip that I will be putting on social media of you, of you saying that Tottenham should sign Mason Mount. But to round this up, then, if you can pick one name, then to for Tottenham to sign this summer in the 10 in the creative role, who would it be and why? And then
Thomas
I'll give mine.
Thomas Frank is very good at developing younger players. I think he's very good at getting the most out of players, technical players, and I'm going to go with Harvey Elliott. I think he started to show really good signs towards the end of Klopp's tenure, and I think Thomas Frank could pick him up where he left off.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If we can't get Eze, I'd go for Harvey Elliott because I think it's got that sort of excitement factor, and I feel like he's got that sort of energy and youthfulness, but also a bit of experience. He's coming from a bigger club. It's a statement signing. My only condition is he did call Harry Kane a rude word a few years ago on social media, so maybe there is that. Actually, before we do round up, you've mentioned, and there might be some Manchester United fans watching this, especially if they hear that Mason Mount's leaving. You're saying about Man United need to sign a midfielder. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, we need to sign a six. Like we've got good individual midfielders in Bruno and in Maino, but they can't play in a midfield double pivot. And Agate's a liability, and Casemiro's legs have gone. Man United should do everything they can, screw Sesko and go for Carlos Baleba. It's not going to happen. And that's what we need. So I think we should look at Agome of Seville. I think he's the next sort of Carlos Baleba. I think if Brighton sold Carlos Baleba, that's who they'd go to replace him with. So I think we just got to look at the alternatives there.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I thought, why didn't we go for someone like that? Because my one worry now is, João Palhinha obviously had so many good numbers, but I mean, I watched the Nagate compilation the other day, and now he was turning, and the tackling is so late. That's my one worry. But maybe I think is Ruben Amorim asking too much of Agate in that position. But yeah, I was the one. I think that's what's quite funny about us. Even after the Europa League, United and Spurs are very similar in the sense of transfer targets. The same names. Start with Wharton and Baleba, and then go down a level, and then go down another level, and then you end up at someone else. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting season for both our clubs. As I say on that Zatchelab video, we were very much arguing against the sea of people to to warrant
Everyone
ourselves up the
questioned
table.
you being like sixth, and I got slandered for being eighth. I was like, all right, we've made more signings than Tottenham right now.
I would have been happy. I was literally, and I said it in the video, I was happy to go seventh or eighth, but there was a gap in sixth, so I just stood there. And I think that the thing is, it's like we don't know what's going to happen with Newcastle. I think after playing them in pre-season the other day as well, they're still a good team, but
They
with all what's
just
going on with them.
No one wants them, and Isak wants to go. But Eddie Howe is a very good manager. Like
Hmm.
but it's just like with Champions League, their depth is it's just
Yeah.
shocking.
That's what I'm a bit like that with us, whether I always think, is our depth good enough? But I feel like our youngsters are so much better than theirs. I feel like our development program is actually onto something right. I mean, we're aiming to loan out loads of players the next couple of weeks or so as well. So, yeah, with them it was a case of they fielded a strong team against us in pre-season, but beyond that, it is a bit like they've got no one to come on. Lewis Miley, who's a lot of pressure on him and whatnot.
They
So
need
yeah,
about 5 signings, and they've made one this window.
yeah. Yeah, literally, I think Newcastle having a poor window is, taking the attention off some other clubs, maybe including
Do
Tottenham.
you know what
But
I was saying because for Sack's video, I'm in the Man United are like dark horses because Newcastle
mm,
and Villa have done nothing, and Bournemouth are now weaker because of the amount of players they've lost. Brentford are now weaker. Bournemouth and Brentford finished above us. Newcastle and Villa finished above us. They what made up the top 10. So if Man United bring in Bumo, Cunha, Sesko in to sort out our biggest problem attack, we could. I just was like Man United could capture those clubs because they haven't done enough, and even Tottenham if they do some good business.
yeah, I literally was arguing this the other day that the top four writes itself, whatever order you want to put it in, and then there's like a mini league in that mid-table. And yeah, I've not been impressed with Villa this summer. I've not been impressed with Newcastle this summer. Bournemouth, Brentford, you mentioned there. Even the clubs below them, Fulham, have done nothing. Sold no one, bought in no one. Everton. I said it earlier. Question marks over them. West Ham. Question marks over them again. Like it's very, and the only clubs that have done well, like Sunderland, is still like, well, you've got to go and prove it. You've got to go and
Yeah, it's a big
actually
gap.
put. Yeah, it's the thing is we need the first weekend or so to really get this pre-season done, and then we'll know more about the season as it goes on, won't we?
Yeah, I just want us to beat Arsenal and Sesko to score and do this.
I just know I made a prediction that I think Sesko is going to have a Lukaku game. You know, Lukaku against Arsenal, where
Yeah.
he dominated and he was really good, and everyone was like, "This guy's going to be fantastic," and then he'll just fall off a cliff and actually not be that good.
Yeah, I like Cisco, and if we get him, cool, happy. But the fee is ridiculous.
Mm.
It's just he's a £50 million player going for 80.
Yeah, it is a bit of a joke. I actually realised I meant Gokeres. Gokeres, I want him to do the Lukaku. He's going to have the Lukaku style game, score against you guys, and everyone will be
Like
like, "Oh my god,
Nunes in the Community Shield, everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to be better than Haaland, Nunes,
yeah."
Darwin Nunes," and he wasn't. But I just need to beat Arsenal first game of the season. Whoever Man United player to score the winner and just do the Gyökeres celebration. I just
or do something else. Like you have three players. One of them's got the like, what's it? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. But right, anyway, that is for today's video. I hope we've got to somewhere. I mean, we've put forward about 400 names, and we're both in agreement that maybe Harvey Elliott is the answer for Tottenham. But before we go anywhere, I mean, Alice, I'm preaching to the already converted. If people don't know who you are, they've been living under a rock. But where can they find you?
For Manchester United content, go check out Alice Talks Football. For Tottenham and general Big Six content, go check out ECILA Football, which is Alice spelled backwards, football. Yeah, and then if you want just waffle, check out Alice Talks Fully on Twitter.
Yes, we all waffle. That's what we were saying beforehand. We all like waffling. This video's gone on for probably nearly an hour. So, but really good. I really enjoyed that again, Alice. So, be keen to get you back on. And always, if you want to talk about Tottenham on your channel, I'm keen to come and waffle to your fan base as well.
We'll do a preview when we get
Yeah.
to that game.
Right. But yeah, if you have enjoyed it, guys, then leave your like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And until next time, up the Spurs and hope United get relegated. Bye.